biomedical signal processing applications, what are the meta questions, uh, that biomedical signals, we process them and then we apply. That's what is the meaning of biomedical signal processing applications. Can we consider a speech also as a biomedical signal? I guess the answer should be yes. Can we use the speech signal processing for biomedical applications? How we can use it? We'll touch upon these things. Then lastly, I will also introduce one of the latest area emerging worldwide is brain waves and HMI, BMI, human machine interface and the brain machine interface. So in my today's talk, I will discuss total in 4 parts, possibly 2 parts in the first session and the last 2 parts in the afternoon session. So first we will discuss the biomedical signal processing and applications, that what does it mean and what do we understand by it. Second, I will just share some of the research work which me and my team and my students have been doing in the area of speech, emotions, paralinguistic sounds. Then we will see that how all of this related work in the speech, paralinguistics or other, how we can use it for medical applications. And lastly, we will touch upon the brainwaves, HMI, BMI. As I said, these are the emerging areas which could help a lot of people in emerging who want to do further research or other things. So we start the part 1 with the biomedical signal processing and applications. In this, we deal with basically 4 words: biomedical, signal processing, and its application. Let us see each one by one quickly. So biomedical, when we say biomedical, of course, it is related to the biosciences and medical. But what is the difference? So I just browse the dictionary. I mean, any of you can also Google and find out the differences. In nutshell, the medical, when we say, medical deals with the person and body or disease interaction. So here person is the main factor, whereas in the biomedical, it is more of the body and disease. So more emphasis is on the body aspect. Signal, when we say, we need to just little bit brush up what do we mean by signal, what is the signal system in, relation, as well as what do we mean by the biomedical signals, and finally how the speech signal is produced and how it is relevant here. When we process something, what do we mean by it? I think it means by preparing. Preparing for what? So, and how? So that all we will discuss, that preparing or extracting features or classification using, and as well as machine learning in that. And ultimate objective here of processing should be to get information, extract the information or getting the extract information. When we say applications, so we mean applying the knowledge for human purposes, of course, and for the purposes which should be of practical applications. That's what is our objective here. So let us see little more detail of these 4 words. The first one we said, the biomedical. So medical science by definition is study on persons and body and disease, whereas biomedical science is the study on body and disease and interaction. So why I'm differentiating is that when we talk medical science, like the normal doctors, like in the today's COVID scenario, uh, it is more related with the person and how the body interacts, or person and the disease, how do they interact, and how they find the solutions for it, or the drugs for it, or the cure for it, and what is the repercussions. So here it is more of the person is in the prime focus, because we want human beings to live or live longer, both. But when we talk of biomedical science, it's a little a wider term than the medical science, of course. But here the body is more of a focus. Human body, when we focus, so what are the different signals it emits, and how do they interact with the disease, and accordingly how the medicines are prepared, what could be the reactions or the other things. That's the dominant study in biomedical. Signal, when we say, let us revisit some of the old definitions related to it. It might be helpful to some of you. Some experts might be knowing that signal is a meaningful representation of information. Many people say that signal is electrical waveform. Can be, but uh, it's a representation. Ultimately, when we want a digital representation, it could be in the ones and zeros or the sequences, but that representation should be meaningful and meaningful for communicating information. That's the main role of the signal. So let us keep these things in the back of the mind. It will be helpful to us. And when we say signal, it could be of two varieties, two types, natural or man-made. So natural signal, we all know that it could be the human speech or the birds or rivers or insects or cosmetic signal or galactic signal. Man-made signals are what we make through the text we write, images we write or we type. Images, what we take from the photographs, camera or photography or anything, or videos or gestures we make. There could be now biomedical sensors, for example, sweat or retina or brainwave. There is another kind of man-made thing nowadays, the social data or information overload. And it could be useful, but it is also a trash, that it is just a small joke side that recently I met one young child about 5, 6 years old, and this young pretty girl was, I think, my niece, and I asked her why she is unhappy. She said, I put some of the things on my Facebook account, and so many of my friends disliked it. So I am feeling bad. Now, like, dislike and making feeling bad, that what are we up to? We are creating the nuisance for ourselves. Although there are some of the advantages also, like you might have heard recently in Delhi, one food stall vendor, 80-year-old couple was helped by the social information. But all these kind of signals are man-made. What is the key difference in the natural and man-made? From us, people who deal in the signal processing, from their point of view, one of the fundamental differences, natural signal is non-repeatable. Can you repeat the same sound? Even as a human being, what we speak, can we reproduce the same sound, same speech again, or the bird sound or the river sound? I would say from the pure signal processing point of view, no. Man-made signal, we can repeat. There is a periodicity, there could be repetition in all of the signals. That's one of the big fundamental difference. So one basic function which most of you might be teaching in second year course, the signals and system, that's the kind of normally first course. But despite teaching for several decades, even decades, I'm saying not years, people do forget. I found people not, missing the basic. The basic fact is that signal carries information of the system that produces it. I just give an example that suppose I tap on the table, this sound itself you can make out that possibly I am tapping on wood, as compared to if I tap on a metal, this is different. And if I tap on the wall, that will be different. You can make out sitting at a distance of hundreds or 1,000 kilometers away, just through using this audio which is communicated through the internet. How are you getting the information? You are only getting the signal, which is not only analog, it is in between digital, converted back to analog through ears. That means signal is carrying the information of the system that produces it. System means that wood or that metal or that wall on which I was tapping. So this view is helpful. And system is that produces the signal. If I know enough about the system, I can produce the signal or simulate the signal just by knowing about the system. I can predict by enough of the knowing about the enough of the system that what kind of signal it will be producing. And that is what is called analysis and synthesis. When we know about the system and we want to predict the signal or generate the signal, we call synthesis. We are synthesizing the signal. And we know enough about the signal and trying to infer about its source, its origin, that what produced it, that means we are trying to get the information about the system, we call it analysis. That's the relation between synthesis and analysis. So signal and system, so basic, but I think it might help to revisit. This is all going to be helpful in the discussion today. So next part we say here is in the signal, that second word only, we are still on that what is the biomedical signal? So biomedical signal could be, I have just given some examples, there could be many more even, that it could be suppose skin temperature or the retina image of our eyeballs or heartbeat or speech, which is going to be my area and we'll be talking more here. That's why I put it in bold, because that we will spend more time relatively. Sweat or ECG or EEG, electroencephalogram, kind of brain mapping, you can say. So all these type of signals do indicate about human body. There could be other modalities also that we will talk later. So in these biomedical signals, for example, now take example of COVID. So you go anywhere, even I'm very sure you go to your institute or go to airport or railway station or anywhere, people check temperature. How are they trying to detect that is certain person affected or not? At present, it is the temperature. It could be by retina, or it could be heartbeat, or it could be speech or things. So different signals we can use for different purposes. That's all we will see today. So speech signal, just to revisit some of the basic, is a natural signal produced by the human speech production system. That how human speech production system produces this signal, that is important, and it is used for communication. Why human beings produce speech? To communicate or express themselves. It could be human to human, or it could be human to machine, that we call HMI, human machine interaction, or it could also be going forward in future, machine to machine interaction. So either communication purposes we use, or it could also be expressing one's state of mind. We call it affective states. For example, if somebody says, I am feeling bored, or I am feeling disgusted, that's a affective state. Or somebody can say, I am feeling very happy, that's an emotion. Or say, I am angry. So there are two things, emotions and affective states. We express through speech. So these are the kind of areas of my little bit of research I have been doing in last about a decade. A speech signal carries information of the system. We already saw it. So why that revisiting was important, that also means a speech signal, since it is produced by the human speech production system, it should be carrying the information about the human speech production mechanism. That means human body. That means a speaker or his or her pathological and emotional state. When we see pathological, that means we can use it for biomedical purposes. Or emotional state, of course, that also we can use maybe psychological purposes or psychological mapping. So I'll give some examples later. Just to give you the indication, for example, coughing. You might have seen doctors infer the disease and they ask you to cough. So by the sound of the cough, they are trying to infer information about the human body. And so one of my students who as an intern came to me, rather two students, they were from IIT Guwahati, and a few years back, we worked on the cough sound. And that cough sound, we published some papers, dry cough or the wet cough and all, it can be helpful. So system which we just defined, that signal can be predicted by knowing the system. So that means speech signal can be synthesized from the production system. So speech signal synthesis is important for, you can say, automated storytelling, or even for robotic sounds. Like today, you talk in iPhone, Siri or Microsoft phone, this Cortana, or even now this Alexa, and all these are they produce the synthesized sounds, and you want to make it more natural. Maybe in futuristic view, another 5 or 10 years down the line, it could be along with emotions as well. So suppose when you are talking to Alexa, maybe Alexa, it may appear to be more like a human being and can maybe express emotions, might be laugh with you or might cry with you kind of thing. So that is the future research. So just to revisit, especially for those who are not aware about the speech production system, there are two basic components in the human speech production system. I'm going to use these terminologies in my discussion further, so that's why I'm kind of sharing this with all. It can benefit to everybody. That first is we call glottal excitation source. That is the vibration of the vocal folds. If you put your fingers below the throat here, and you just put your finger and other side thumb, you can just press very gently and you can feel that there is some vibration happening in your throat. That is what is the vocal fold that vibrates. Opening and closing of it is called vibration. And from that, the sound is produced. Second is vocal tract system. This whole air column, starting from our mouth cavity, going down the throat, in the technically it is called larynx. In the larynx, this vocal tract system is the air column which resonates in this tube, this vacuum, this cavity. This air column resonates, and its opening closing of this glottis makes the vibration, and that's how the sound is produced. So in production of speech sound can be normal or non-verbal. So normal vocal fold, in that vocal fold vibrations are regular in a rhythmic pattern, more on the periodic changes. And in the non-verbal sounds, they may not be regular, but there are some significant changes. So in speech, I have been doing the work for more than 10-15 years, and the beauty of the speech research is that there is a human reference. So any analysis or synthesis we want to do, there is always a reference available. So it is not like, not unlike walking on the unknown territory. So the existence of this reference is very helpful in the research in this domain. A challenge as well. So interaction of human speech sounds, we do the different signals. Here I am in the bottom, I am showing these 4 signals. The first signal, this one is the speech. This is how it looks like. This is like a periodic signal. If I get it from the another device, EGG, electroglottograph, so it gives me only the periodic parts of the signal and leaves the site, which could be synthesized from the linear prediction residual of the speech signal. I'm just showing that. Not much relevant here. Okay. So processing, what do we mean by processing? So example is, let us say, look at the farmer's grain. It could be rice grain or the wheat grain. How do they differentiate separate the wheat and chaff from the grain? So that is processing. You cannot eat the wheat which is like in the field unless it is processed. You cannot eat rice just like the same it is in the field. You need to process it, then only you can eat it. So same way, processing means to make it consumable. That could be one interpretation. Now I will give another example that should be helpful to all. Milk processing. So take example, from the milk, you process and make cream. I'm not going in the details of the processing part, but just to give you indication. From the cream, you process further, you make in the butter form. You process further, you make in the ghee form. So all this processing, if you say the ghee form, maybe 1 spoon of ghee might be giving you more energy or the more fat or whatever the content, equal to maybe 1 liter of milk. I don't know. I mean, I'm just giving a hypothetical example that That is what the processing means. 1 spoon versus 1 liter of milk. That is the processing. So we all do the processing, signal processing, information processing, even information processing, any domain we work in, we always do processing. That is the more important aspect. Rather, I will extrapolate that as engineers, all of us do some processing or the other. So what do we mean by processing? So it means looking at these examples, either filtering, that we filter out some element like grain example, wheat or chaff, or we shape it. Yes, we can do some pulse shaping or something like in the signal we do a lot, or even in the wheat or rice. For example, wheat, we make chapati or parantha, that shaping, you shape and then you can eat. That's fine. You cannot eat raw. Or we transform. So when we say milk, cream or butter or ghee, these are all transformation. It is not reversible. Once it is made ghee, you cannot say that now from that 1 spoon you get me back 1 liter of milk. I don't think that's going to be feasible. We have not reached that stage yet. Or it could be enhancing. We do the enhancements in some aspect. So all these words define processing. Why do we process? Because we want to extract information. And that information, we want to make it more intelligible so that we can make out some meaning out of it. That's why we process information. And that information, why do we want to make it intelligible? Because we want to apply it, want to make it applicable for some human consumption or some application which is of human use. So that is the relevance of processing. And how do we process? There are two important steps here, now scientifically or engineer wise. First is feature extraction. What are the key features in that we extract? Take example of this milk, cream, butter example. So one feature could be fat, that we extract fat. Second feature could be energy, something like that. We extract feature from the signal using this signal processing method. That is what the world coined signal processing. And we further apply classification and machine learning tools. So classify into the different segments, or we use the machine learning aspects to separate out, or we use the different tools to maybe we separate out the clusters or the boundaries or different classes or different segments. So all this is through these tools and we process it, and that's going to be helpful for making decisions. That's the purpose of it. So when we say applications, so what do we apply? What we apply is knowledge or information, or in our signal processing words, we say features extracted. That's what we are going to talk. Why do we apply it for? So we apply it for basically human purposes or to benefit humanity. We want to apply all these knowledge or information or the features for some practical utilization which can benefit the humanity in larger sense. For example, tomorrow if we want to get some solution to COVID, some vaccine or some cure, or maybe we want to make some device to track or anything and all, it is going to help humanity at the large. And whatever we know about it, we want to apply that and we want to make something new. So this is just an example. How do we apply? We want to develop the practical applications, and in that we can use these advanced tools like AI, ANN or machine learning. So this is going to be as a buzzword nowadays, AI, ML, and I am very sure your institute, my institute, all the people do talk a lot about the AI, ML, all. Nothing out of the world. It existed even 50, 60 years back. Regarding AI, I will encourage each of you to see the fantastic movie of 1950s, the Imitation Game. In that movie, the kind of father of AI, I'm just missing the name, who is actually the father of AI, and also somehow Ian Fleming is coming to my name, but no, it will come. I'll tell that. I'll share. So AI has been around till since 50s, 60s, and then artificial neural network has been for a long time. Machine learning is also attempted in 70s, 80s. None of this is started in last 5, 10 years, but in last 5, 10 years, they have gathered momentum because computing power has increased drastically at the reduced size. That's the reason. And we are using it more and more in almost all walk of life. But remember, all these are only tools. Using those tools, what do we make the practical applications? That's what is biomedical signal processing applications. So when we say the biomedical signal processing applications, we just look at it, we will revisit it in details later. That is skin temperature, for example, we use for detecting fever or maybe some wearable devices. Like today now COVID, we are detecting by the skin temperature only, either at the forehead or the hands. There could be some automated devices made by the IoT and that can transmit on its own, so person don't need to monitor. That also is possible. Or we do the heartbeat monitoring. Now these wearable bands are there, which can keep tracking of your heartbeat. A retina image, some of my students worked in glaucoma detection, for example, kind of glaucoma in the eye. Speech, as I gave the example of cough, we have been using for even pathological applications. SET could be used for maybe viral fever or respiration related diseases. ECG could be used for predicting the heart attack or maybe preventing it. EEG can also be useful for brain mapping or the brain waves that we will see more specifically. So having seen this biomedical signal processing and applications, so hold your question, you can note down at the end of my first talk even, I will give you the last 15 minutes to 30 minutes for question answers. Let us see this section 2 also, and then we can have some time for question answers. So speech, emotions, and paralinguistic sounds. So and I said that biomedical signal we have seen could be of variety in that, as I said, that will dominate. Since it is my area of research, I will share some of the work we have done in speech and how we have related to that in the medical applications that I will share. So in speech, emotions, paralinguistic sounds, my first question is just food for thought for each of you. And that's where I feel the limitation of teaching online and sharing or the in-person class where the interaction is much more important, but doesn't matter. We have to live with the technology and whatever limited way we can do as of now. In our human-to-human communication, what gives you more information? Is it the verbal content or the non-verbal cues? For example, I talk, let us say 1 hour, or maybe let's take the third person example. You hear somebody talking 1 hour talk and all, and your friend asks you, hey, how was the talk? So that 1 hour of talk, now what's next? You can possibly summarize in 2 words. You may say, wow. Or you may simply say, yeah. This small non-verbal clue is good enough to indicate to the other person that it was waste of time. Or you just say, wow, 3-letter word. That's going to indicate that possibly it was worth the time. So I'm sure you would agree that possibly non-verbal clues gives much more information than the verbal clues, verbal content. Although both are important in communication. So speech, emotions, and paralinguistic sounds, this is kind of my domain. Somebody, please. Okay. So emotional speech, we talk of different emotions and different databases and different context. Sometimes you talk of 4 emotions or 5 emotions or 6 emotions or more. So it could be happy, anger, fear, sad, or disgust, and all this relates to the emotional state of a person. But paralinguistic sound, for example, laugh, cry, cough, sneeze, yawn, or burp, all this tell about pathological condition of human body. A person is crying or laughing, definitely it indicates more of the psychological condition, but cough or sneeze, very relevant in the COVID scenario. I mean, just few days back, I was talking to some of my friends that cough or sneeze have become luxury now in last 5-6 months. Suppose I am in an airport or in a flight or somewhere, you just, can I sneeze? Can I afford to sneeze? I will, use the word, can I afford to sneeze or cough? It could be normal, not necessarily COVID. Rather, more than 80-90%, it's only viral or weather phenomena. It could be AC phenomena because of somebody had a more exposure to the cold or something. But it has become such a scare now that 10, 20 people around you are going to be in the panic if I sneeze in person, public, right? So, but why? Because this sneeze or cough gives the indication of pathological condition of human body. We interpret it rightly or wrongly, that's secondary. But yes, it is indicative, no doubts. Burp, it gives the indication related to the digestive system as well, or whether you are having the digestion or it's proper or not, or any such signals, or yawning, give the psychosomatic, it is related to the eye, body, and attention and all, or psychological, all aspects. Even the yawning can indicate even the boredom. Somebody giving a talk or somebody feel bored and people yawn, so that means it's boring. So all some such conditions are indicated by these paralinguistic sounds. So when we talk of speech, it gives the layers of information. First level is we talk semantic information. That is what we talk as the key message or the key information. Language information you can get from the speech about the syntax, phonetics, dialect. One of my, couple of my PhD scholars are working on the language or dialect even. So there, I will share that towards the end of the talk, maybe in afternoon session. That just by the normal English, can the machine tell you tomorrow that, hey, Mr. So-and-so, are you from Tamil Nadu, or are you from Andhra, or are you from Karnataka? So that dialect can be inferred just by the plain speech, plain English text. That means that language information is embedded in our speech. So speech also tells about system. We already said that signal carries information about system. It tells about three things of the system. Characteristics. That means speaker, who the person is. The example I will give is that for your, the nearest or dearest person to you in life, it could be your spouse or your beloved or mother or father, I can challenge that even among the 100 or 1,000 people in the crowd, if you are that nearer or dearer person is shouting, you can blindly identify the speech that so and so is talking, so and so, that my mother is shouting, or my wife is shouting, or my husband is shouting, or my fiance is shouting. You can make out. That is the characteristics, and that relates on the physiological traits. It could be, vocal tract length and according to the human being length and all that. And physiological traits also mean that fundamental frequency in which we measure is higher of female, and child is further higher fundamental frequency. Or it could relate to state. State could be like affective states, we call it, as I said, boredom or surprise or other states. Behavior could be like emotions or expressions. So one can express the behavior that I'm happy or angry or sad or so, or it could be just expressions, which is by the non-verbal sounds. Like I gave the example, or wow, or we call something like the thumbs up or other kind of things. So like the visual gestures we make, we can make the verbal gestures also. That's what is this expressions. So emotions, we differentiate, that is very important to differentiate between human beings and machines. Because you might have seen the different movies also, and one of the example I'll give the, which many of you might have seen, popular movie of South India, Rajnikant movie, Robot. So Robot, they show a robot as a chitti, and how that in the first version of chitti is different from the next version is emotions. Because they say that between robot and human being, the difference is emotions, primary difference. So emotions, we can talk on the three dimensions, the valence, arousal, dominance, and all that. That is pleasant or excitement or degree power. Not much relevant here. So when we process the speech signal, it is just an example that, like we said, the biomedical signal processing. So I'm giving it as an example of speech signal processing, that how do we do it? So we take the raw signal data. It could be any, when I say speech, you can replace it with the biomedical signal. Process will be almost similar. So you use pre-processing of it. That means we make it, some pre-processing means we do the shaping or removal of the noise or some certain frequencies or something, then make it, use its signal processing method. So different signal processing methods we use to extract different features. And from the different features, in the feature space, we use analysis. And in that analysis, then we apply classifications of the different models or your AI, ANN or machine learning techniques here. We do the classification or train different models and then use it for practical applications, day-to-day applications. That's how whole this signal processing, speech signal processing we do. Some examples I'm going to share next maybe about 10-15 minutes related to the research work me and my team have done in the last about 10 years and some important papers I'm going to share. Um, the details I will you can take a note or a snapshots, up to you. Normally in my lectures I don't share the slides, so that attention divert. You can free to take a snapshots or you can note down. I will just give enough time. Most of my papers are also available in the ResearchGate. You can download or any paper if you want to get, I can email that. That's not an issue. So this source system coupling, how the source and system, when I say source and system, as I shared that in the human speech production system, that excitation source, that is the glottis or vocal fold that we refer to as source, or system is vocal tract filter. That means this larynx, that tube, that cavity is system. So when we say source or system, in my talk today, you please interpret it in this way, that excitation source, the glottis or the vocal fold, which is vibrating in the throat, that we call it source, and the vocal tract system, that larynx or that cavity or that tube part, we call it system. How this interaction is, that there is something called the trill sound. Trill sound is like ra. So when we speak, it will be sounding like ra. So you produce the r sound, you can yourself see that your tongue is vibrating, trying to touch on the upper lip and open and close kind of thing. Or you try to speak now, la, la. So if you speak la, l, so this la sound, actually the tongue is near to the upper lip, upper palate part, but it is not touching it. It slightly has a distance. And this we studied with the different phenomena, and this you can see, so this L is called approximant and ra sound is called trill. So if we remove, we have done the experiment in the 4 parts, that we retain the source and system and try to say this is what is this, or we retain only the source part and we change the system, or we only retain the system part or we change the source, or we change both of that. What we found, that when we change only the source part, that is the excitation source part, so here this trill, which was originally here like this, now it starts visible like this. It means it is making sound like approximant. So means you remove this source information, your ra sound starts sounding like la sound. So instead of you say arra. So instead of it, it will look like Allah. So much of a difference. So we had a paper in the top-notch conference in inter-speech in 2012. We did the study long back, but it's still relevant. That's what is all these things are useful in synthesis and other things, and even the speech therapies. So here I'm trying to show more diagrammatically that R sound is like this opening and closing, whereas La sound is that there is a very narrow gap constantly available here. So same way we did the other normal speech study through the other mechanism. This was a top-notch journal, JASA, Journal of Acoustic Science of Acoustic Society of America. In this, we could publish this paper, which is the top-notch journal, apical trill or the lateral approximant, that is the Ra, Arra or Allah sound. And you see the differences even in the features extracted. This is the first you see in the top is the normal speech signal. Then it's shown the EG signal, DEG signal, and ZFF is zero frequency filtering output signal is shown of both. And F0 is the fundamental frequency that is extracted. You see that is also showing the cyclic pattern in the case of Arra. So shoulders are shown as A, and in between is this R sound, which is more of a cyclic pattern, which is missing in the Allah sound. Same way SOE, that is strength of excitation, is showing here the cyclic, and then the dominant frequencies, which is the giving system information also. So from multiple features, we have seen the same evidence that Ra sound, it is more of the cyclic nature of changes, whereas in La sound it is missing, and if we change the source information, it starts sounding like La. So this is all the quantitative evidences, and this is the paper I was referring, which is one of the landmark paper published a few years back in the Journal of Acoustic Society of America, which is the top-notch journal in US based. So another is example, the shouted speech. I have worked quite a bit to differentiate between the soft, normal, loud, and shout. For example, I'll just try to give you the thing. It is like a soft sound. The simple word is, where were you? Once again, I play for your benefit. This is a normal. Where were you? So once again, see the difference. Normal is this. So soft is more feeble, more gentle. Loud is a little louder. Where were you? So in the shout, when I started doing this research, my presumption was that in shout, possibly the excitation source changes are much more, and there is a kind of turbulence effect in the throat. But contrary to that, my findings in the research were that no, it is not turbulent, like rather in the shout, the voice is more steady. Changes are there in the excitation source part, that part was the same, but it is more steady. And we studied these phenomena for vowels and around, and we published this in the first in one conference in USA in 2013 and followed by a journal paper. So for example, see these changes here, that it is the LFSE stands for low frequency source energy, low frequency spectral energy. And that energy, if you will see the variation over horizontal axis is showing the time. So for the normal speech is this, and if you compare the soft speech, the changes are more. Whereas on the other direction, loud speech, these changes are more, very low, and in shout rather it is more steady. You see a simple solid line. These fluctuations are very minimized, and as well as the level, that average level itself. And whereas in the high frequency spectral energy, this is again opposite. The changes are more, Although the average is increasing here, this is normal, this is loud and shout. But this is what it was published in the JASA paper a few years back, which is a landmark paper. And this phenomenon is much more visible in the HNGD diagram, that is the hypernumeral gradient, differential gradient operator. So in this, we used this diagram, this technique to draw these diagrams. This is again the vocal tract excitation source information only in the frequency range from 0 to 4000 hertz. But if you see, the changes are more near 0 to 200, 300 hertz, or maybe sometime even up to 1000 hertz. These, for soft, the energy is mostly concentrated in the lower energy side. As compared to shout, the energy is mostly concentrated in the high frequency side. So to get this kind of diagrams, it took me about getting around about 1000 of diagrams, and then you finally zeroed on to this kind of information, and that's how these good publications are published. So low frequency spectral energy, when we talk, it is 0 to 400 hertz, and high frequency is 800 to 5000 hertz. That is what is the meaning, and you see clearly the differences between soft, normal, loud, and shout. So once we characterize this kind of information, now you can use it, apply it. For example, I can apply it, and that's one of my patent is there with one of the multinational company, that suppose you are seeing a video and you want to 3-hour movie you see, and you want to find out the regions that where the shout is occurring. Shout is indicative of, it is not the same as anger, but closely associated. So normally when people are angry, they shout, although not necessary. We proved that also. So, another my co-author might have already might be talking to you tomorrow, Anil Gopala in IIIT Hyderabad. We published also some paper, couple of papers together onto this automatic detection of shout region. So it will be, for example, I'll give you the project file there.
Don't stop, go on. Don't stop, go on.
This is still normal.
Please help. Please help.
So in both of these, the first speech is normal, second is shout. So I just play again.
Don't stop, go on. Don't stop, go on.
Please help. Please help.
So in both of these kind of speeches, when we play the normal and shouted speech, the difference between the F0 contour is here visible. That F0 is the fundamental frequency. Suppose in the normal speech is between 100 to 200 here, which goes up to from 200 to 300 here for the shouted. Whereas in it is also like a convex kind of contour. Strength of excitation is also raising in the opposite direction as from normal to shout. But the big differences in the dominant frequency is one of the technique which I evolved under the guidance of Professor Yagana, using the linear prediction analysis. So this dominant frequency, the details are available in the papers referred. So there, the changes in normal is roughly about 500 hertz, but in shouted speech it goes to about 2000 hertz. So with some of these things are helpful to detect shout automatically. So another example I give now, emotional study. So a couple of my students have been working, even now also different students are working on the emotional speech. It's still an open area. So same speaker for German emotional speech database of a male speaker. So for one particular sentence, we look at different emotions. Sounds like anger, happy. You can see the difference of the spectrograms, neutral and sad. All are different, that in the anger, it is more and happy and sad. This will be more clear to you by other contours for here. For example, if you see this mean fundamental frequency for male speak or for mean fundamental frequency for female. So for anger, happy, fear, neutral and sad, so first our effort was to differentiate between the high arousal and low arousal. High arousal is like happy or anger or fear, and low arousal is like sad or neutral. So you can yourself assume that when the person is happy or angry, so there is something, more agitation is there. That is called arousal. Neutral and sad is very low kind of voice or less agitation or less energy. So that is called low arousal. So we differentiate that by this vertical dotted line, and you can see these features extracted for like F naught is very clearly high for this high arousal sounds as compared to the low arousal sounds. Same for even female, this higher arousal sounds are different for and lower arousal sounds. In 2018, when we conducted interspeech in Hyderabad, in that one of the workshops, this paper was published. And this is also proven by the strength of excitation or the energy. So this one of my MSc student, Esther, worked on this and obtained these differences. Recently, a couple of my colleagues in my KL University, we have published, and this paper was published in February in NCC, one of the top-notch conference in India. Every year, different IIT organizes this paper, this conference. This year, it was organized by IIT Kharagpur. So see this clustering of, this is using the Mahalanobis distance. MD stands for Mahalanobis distance. We used for one emotion versus other. So horizontally, we took it from, say, disgust emotion. And against that, we plotted this Mahalanobis distance for anger, happy, fear, or sad. And we get these different kind of concentrations. And we can differentiate based upon this also, that whether the person is angry, happy, fear, or sad. And higher arousal, lower arousal was kind of differentiated. So high arousal shows very clearly this more onto the circular nature, whereas fear and sad is relatively flat. So another study I have been doing is, for example, laughter. So laughter sound is like three things. So normal speech, loud speech, or non-speech laugh. So normal speech is for reference. Loud speech is when, let us say, person say, yeah, I am very happy, that. So speaking and laughing together. And non-speech laugh is pure laugh. There is no speech in that. It is just like ha 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 ha. So it is non-speech laugh. All these three, we collected some data and we studied over it using the 67 utterances for about 11 speakers, and this is the statistics. We used some of these features and parameters, and the results were something like this. For example, if you look at this F0 contour, so this F0 contour for laughed speech versus non-speech laugh is showing the significant difference. So loud speech means speech and laughter in between. So whenever the laughter is there, that means it will be like more of this convex kind of thing, or speech will be normal. Whereas in this non-speech laugh, if you look at, it is rising and falling, rising and falling, rising and falling. That is the characteristics we got for laughter speech. And the text was, it's a good joke. So this we published in the interspeech, and this one journal later on in Elsevier, this one of the reputed journal is Computer Speech and Language, a few years back. So this, I also studied, evolved a method like a modified ZFF, that is modified zero frequency filtering in that, and through that also we proven that using some of this kind of statistics, in this we are showing both signals, that this is the non-speech laugh where you can see this parameter is very high, and in the speech laugh, this is low regions where the parameters are low. That differentiates. Another example is infant cry. So a couple of my students have been working on infant cry, which has got a wide attention worldwide. I mean, every week or so, I keep getting the request for sharing the database or the papers and all. So this infant cry, the basic premise is that why the child is crying, mother knows. Mother hears the the cry sound and knows whether the baby is hungry or whether the baby is under pain or whether the baby is having some discomfort. Maybe that infant is wet or something. So all that can be differentiated. So in this diagram, I'm just going to show the two categories, the pain and discomfort. So pain could be, for example, that suppose a mosquito bite is there and that is paining, or some alpine has, pinched the baby. Expression is going to be only through cry. It cannot, he or she cannot speak at that age. And discomfort, as I said, could be, hot, the environment is hot, or maybe the bed is wet, either of that, so discomfort. So in pain cry, the sound is having the more of this cup-shaped phenomena. These are simple spectrogram shown. So mother knows from the cry sound because information is there already in cry sound. Mother can detect it. But now through our study, what we are trying, can the machine detect the similar information? And for that pain cry, this is more of the cyclic nature of sounds. This is the spectrogram showing, and discomfort, it is more of the flat kind of changes. The sound signal doesn't lie. One of the fundamental beliefs we have, signal doesn't lie. So signal is proving the difference between the pain cry and discomfort cry. So we published this result first time in inter-speech related workshops in earlier 2015-16, last 5-6 years, we have been working in this area. So pain cry is, I will show later on some applications also of this. So pain cry, we can see that more of the cyclic changes here in the F0 or the even SOE impulses, whereas discomfort cry is more flat relatively. So one of the applications we found here, I just tell hand to hand, can we make an automated system? We attempted it. It could have been patentable stuff, but it's incomplete. If some of you are interested, please feel free. We can work together and make it complete kind of. But as a proof, we developed using the hardware. We developed the hardware. My student worked it when I was in IIIT Sri City, and we demonstrated it, and it was published in one of the good conference in USA in 2-3 years back. A simple idea that both the working parents, husband and wife, go to office, and baby is left, let us say, in the crèche. And in the crèche, whether that attendant is attending to the child or not, how do we know? Or maybe that child is crying and attendant is not there, or maybe not doing the job properly. So at the first cry, the direct SMS goes to the parent that, dear parent, your baby is crying. And we call this as a ICDS home, that is the Intelligent Cry Detection and Information System. If another few minutes, let us say 4 or 5 minutes or maybe 2 minutes, that we can set it. If the cry is still continuous, another SMS goes to the parent that your baby is still crying, please pay attention. So now if the second time this message goes, parent is supposed to react and talk to the attendant what is happening. Or if third time the message goes, you can see the differences of the time here, that for 3:47 p.m., 3:52, that means 5 minutes later, another 5 minutes, another message that goes to the system, to the parent, that your baby is crying for a long time, need urgent attention. Now, maybe parent rush back or just make phone calls to the management and all that. Hey, my child is crying for last 10 minutes. What is happening? This is just a very primitive thing. Although we wanted further to go on, it is still having the potential. We can even make it automated that why the child is crying. That also possibly we can attempt. And we use the robot or other things here and multiple things here. So this is just one application of the research. So like that fourth category, just this is more for the academic interest, but I will complete for the discussion sake. Because paralinguistic sound, emotional speech we study, and third category I call it expressive voices. Expressive voices is like our ragas, which are highly expressive. They, if you say that, look at the Indian ragas, or it could be the opera singing. Some of you might have seen in the movies or heard about. And likewise, there is a no voice in Japanese art. So that means through the singing tone itself, person expresses emotions, very intense emotions. So we studied on this no voice and did some good work and evolved a lot of things here, um, and found the different F naught and other contours. So this is slightly of the deeper and for the experts in the speech signal processing. I'll skip here. But we could differentiate like the different results using the different techniques published in some good papers. So let us see now later in the afternoon session possibly, it is already 11:12, that speech signal processing and medical application, and then finally we will see about the brainwaves and HMI, BMI. So before we start part 3, now that part 3 we will possibly start in afternoon session. I think it's a time now, next 15 minutes, I will take the question answers and any things you want to talk.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Any doubts from the participant side?
Please feel free. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I think somebody is speaking, just unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, yes.
Any
Yeah,
doubts?
some
before we discuss?
33.
Yes.
33. You can talk. Number 33. I think 51306 D33. Unmute yourself and you can ask.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning, please. Yes.
Sir, in this session, just we have concentrated on the emotions recognition from the database, sir. So, is it all done in the on the real-time signals, or have taken from the database, sir?
Both. So certain we collected for specific purposes. For example, which I gave the example for shout and laughter, that I myself collected the databases. Or infant cry, one of my student used to go for almost 2 months to a hospital in Hyderabad, a child hospital, and there for about 2 months in the scorching heat of May and June, because it came as a summer intern, and they collected the data there. And
Sir, is this collected signals are pre-processed, sir, later, or have used the raw signals directly, sir?
no, I shown you in one of the slide that always when you want to process the signal, you should pre-process it. You know, raw signal kind of gives you the misleading information. So that is not recommended. You should always process it first. I think I had shown you the slide. I will just go back to that slide. I can give the indication.
Yes, sir.
That,
Initial slides, it is
yes,
pre-processing.
yeah, here. So basically you should always take the raw data, pre-process it, and then only apply the signal processing methods. Pre-processing is necessary. You cannot, otherwise it misleads you.
Sir, can you give any information regarding pre-processing, sir? What type of processing we should do?
So pre-processing, for example, I give the speech signal only. So a
Yes, sir.
speech signal, when we want to pre-process, we remove the unwanted silence regions. You know, before the recording starts, or even after recording starts, there could be some period of silence, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
this way person has spoken, and after that also sometime the recording continues. So in the beginning and end, that unwanted silence need to be removed. In between silence is important, that we need not remove. That could be the pause or something, and that could be meaningful.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir.
That is one.
Uh,
Second is, suppose there is some any background noise.
yes, sir.
Some noise kind of thing we can remove, or in that entire signal file, if noise is too much, we might have to discard that data or something. So that is one. And sometime, like in this cry kind of thing, we looked up the each cry. So whole recording was, let us say, because it's an infant, we don't, is crying, let us say 2-3 minutes we recorded, but in 2-3 minutes the baby cried maybe cry sound, kind of thing, you know, that was about say 7-8. So we, each of that cry sound, we cut it separately and processed it. So in pre-processing, that also is important, that you can, you know, make the smaller segments or relevant segments for you. So all that is related to pre-processing. And finally, you remove this, like, as I said, noise that is very high frequency, or you can filter it out, or the very low frequency, some of those you can do the filtering, and that is called pre-processing.
Oh, yes, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other question from anyone? You can also please feel free, if you are doing any relevant work in speech or biomedical field anywhere, if you are working, and you or your student, and if you are stuck somewhere and want to know any doubt, use this opportunity to get some inputs about it. Anybody else? Any other question? Any doubts? Or whatever I talked in that, if something is not clear, or you want me to revisit that?
I think no questions from participants yet, sir.
Okay. So it is still the more of the, you know, setting the stage, and speech wise we have seen, and afternoon will be focusing purely on applications aspect, and we will also talk on the brainwave and HMI, BMI, which are the kind of latest topics related to the biomedical signals.
Yes, sir.
If we were to be, you know, more people want to join, that will be useful to them. We start. And I hope that this is
Sir?
useful to people today. Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Afternoon session will start at 2 o'clock, sir.
Okay.
Any doubts or any queries you can ask? Otherwise, we will close the meeting. Sir, one question from participants, sir.
Yes.
In extracting speech spectrum only, magnitude is considered or phase also?
That's a good question. Both are important, magnitude and phase both. So in certain cases we use only magnitude, or in certain cases we use phase information. More often we use magnitude, but phase also is useful, and there are some techniques through phase information also we get some meaningful features. So it is depending on what exact tool we
Yes,
use
sir.
it, you know. at home we use different knives for different purposes. So same way, different tools. But yes, both information are useful. That's the answer.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Is there any question on the chat box? If in case, I think no.
Yeah.
Yeah, already we covered it. That phase.
Yeah, covered, sir. Covered.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. So we'll assemble again.
Yes, sir.
We'll start the session at
2 o'clock, sir.